They sit quietly at the edges of life. The ones who choose solitude, not because the world has forgotten them, but because they've chosen to forget the world. Their silence is not emptiness, it's a shield, a fortress, a sanctuary. And while others see loneliness, they are sharpening their minds in the shadows. These are not ordinary people. They do not need the crowd's applause, nor do they bend to its expectations. They watch, they wait, they listen. And when they finally speak or act, the world feels it like a tremor under its feet. There is a power that comes from being alone by choice, a power so rare that most never taste it, and many fear those who do. Because solitude changes a person. It forces them to see the world as it is, not through illusions or noise, but through brutal, unfiltered truth. They become masters of their own minds, architects of their own destiny, and warriors of quiet battles you'll never hear about. To underestimate them is dangerous, to misunderstand them is common, but to truly know them is terrifying. Today, we open the pages on 5 terrifying intelligences of those who walk alone, not out of weakness, but strength. Welcome to the Forgotten Chapters, a place where stories of power, pain, and transformation are told in whispers that echo louder than shouts. Here, we do not chase trends or surface-level inspiration. We dive into the quiet depths of the human soul, where truth is raw, uncomfortable, and often unsettling. This is where we reveal the wisdom hidden in suffering, the strength born from isolation, and the secrets the world tries to bury beneath noise. Most people run from solitude. They fill their lives with distractions, relationships, and endless noise because silence feels like a mirror they're afraid to face. But some, just a few, choose that silence. They retreat not in defeat, but in rebellion, shaping themselves into something extraordinary. In that stillness, they develop traits that are hard to name, even harder to understand. And while society often calls them loners or outcasts, history shows us that some of the world's greatest minds, leaders, and revolutionaries walked this same lonely path. In this chapter, we're peeling back the layers on a truth most people avoid. Solitude is not weakness. It's not isolation. It's power. If you've ever felt different, misunderstood, or disconnected, this story is for you. If you've ever sat in silence and felt your mind sharpen instead of crumble, you already know what's coming. This episode is not just a list of traits. It's a map, a mirror, and maybe even a warning. Stay with us as we uncover 5 terrifying intelligences of people who choose to be alone. Some people look, others see, but those who choose solitude, they observe. They notice the twitch of a jaw when someone lies, the hesitation in a handshake, and the slight change in tone when truth is being bent. Solitude sharpens the senses like a blade, because when you spend enough time alone, you learn to read people from a distance. You study their patterns, their words, and their silences. To others, this ability feels almost supernatural, but it's not magic. It's the quiet work of a mind unclouded by noise. Hyperperception is born from silence. In solitude, every detail becomes louder. A smile that doesn't reach the eyes, footsteps that betray fear, a subtle glance exchanged across a room, all these things tell stories most people are too distracted to notice. This is why people who live in solitude are often misunderstood. Their calm demeanor hides an extraordinary ability to see through masks. It makes some people uneasy because being truly seen is terrifying. When someone looks at you and knows what you're hiding, when they can read you without you speaking a word, it feels like standing naked in front of truth itself. This intelligence doesn't come from arrogance, it comes from pain. Solitude is rarely chosen without reason. Those who walk away from the crowd have often been betrayed, manipulated, or disappointed enough times to study the patterns that hurt them. Over time, this study becomes second nature. They stop being surprised by human behavior because they've seen its patterns repeat too many times. Hyperperception is a survival skill, a weapon forged in silence. And while the world dismisses them as quiet or distant, these individuals are watching, learning, and memorizing. Their solitude has made them students of humanity, and their intelligence is unsettling because they cannot be fooled. They see through charm. They recognize manipulation. They can predict betrayal long before it happens. That is why some people fear those who choose to be alone. They cannot be deceived easily. And in a world built on illusions, those who see truth become both powerful and dangerous. People who choose solitude often carry scars the world cannot see. They have been betrayed by the very ones they trusted, broken by love that promised safety, or burned by hands they once reached for. At some point, they decided that no one would ever have that kind of power over them again. This decision doesn't make them cold, it makes them armored. Emotional armor is not built overnight, it's forged in pain, disappointment, and quiet tears cried when no one was there to listen. What sets these people apart is not that they feel less. In truth, they often feel more. They are deeply empathetic, deeply aware, and deeply affected by the world around them. But their solitude has taught them that emotions, left unchecked, can become weapons in the wrong hands. So they have trained themselves to master their feelings. When others would explode in anger or collapse under guilt, they remain steady. Their strength is unnerving because you cannot manipulate someone who has already walked through hell. You cannot shame a person who has already faced their own darkness and survived. This is why emotional armor is terrifying. It gives them power over their own hearts. They don't crumble when people withdraw love, nor do they chase validation. They have learned that approval is fleeting and loyalty is rare. Their silence in moments of chaos can feel almost supernatural because, while others panic, they stand still. Their faces unreadable, their choices deliberate. This isn't because they're heartless. It's because they've learned how dangerous it is to let others control their emotions. Yet, beneath this armor lies someone who once cared too much, who once loved deeply enough to be shattered. That's why their solitude isn't weakness, it's wisdom. They no longer give their heart away freely, not out of bitterness, but out of understanding its worth. They protect their peace like a fortress, because they know what it's like to live without it. And in a world where emotions are often used as leverage, a person who cannot be easily swayed becomes intimidating. Emotional armor doesn't just shield them, it makes them unshakable. And unshakable people are the hardest to control. There's a certain strength that only solitude can teach, the ability to depend entirely on yourself. People who choose to walk alone are often forced into this path by life's storms. Maybe they were let down too many times, abandoned when they needed help the most, or simply realized that no one was coming to save them. Instead of crumbling under this truth, they turned it into fuel. Solitude became their training ground. In their quiet, they built themselves, piece by piece, into someone unbreakable. Radical self-reliance doesn't just mean survival. It means thriving without constant validation or guidance. These individuals learn to solve their own problems, mend their own wounds, and create their own opportunities. They don't wait for a handout or a savior. They become their own. This is why their presence can feel intimidating. They've tasted rock bottom and clawed their way out without applause, without a cheering crowd, without anyone holding their hand. That kind of resilience is rare, and it terrifies those who rely on the comfort of others. And yet, this trait is not born out of arrogance, but necessity. People who choose solitude understand that dependence can be a chain, and they refuse to be chained. They master skills others overlook, prepare for storms others ignore, and build strength others don't see until it's too late. Their silence is not passivity, it's preparation. While others spend their time pleasing people or chasing distractions, they are sharpening themselves like a blade in the shadows. If these first 3 traits already feel powerful, wait until you hear the next 2. Because solitude doesn't just create strong people, it creates dangerous ones. The kind of strength forged in silence isn't obvious, but when it reveals itself, it shakes everything around it. This radical self-reliance makes them powerful, but it also makes them mysterious. People wonder why they don't panic when everything falls apart. They wonder why they move through life with such quiet confidence. The truth is, solitude has taught them this. If you can stand alone, you can survive anything. And in a world where most people crumble without constant support, someone who has forged themselves in fire becomes a force to be reckoned with. They are not simply independent, they are untouchable. If this speaks to your soul, pause for a moment, hit like, share this video, and subscribe to the Forgotten Chapters. Here we uncover the truths no one dares to speak aloud. Join us, because somewhere out there, another person walking alone needs this reminder of their power. When you spend enough time in solitude, illusions begin to fall away. The noise of society, the masks people wear, and the false stories we tell ourselves, none of it survives in silence. This is where brutal clarity is born. People who choose solitude see life for what it truly is: raw, unforgiving, and deeply honest. They have looked in the mirror long enough to see both their greatness and their flaws. They know themselves better than most, and that self-awareness gives them an edge that feels unnerving to others. This clarity doesn't just apply to themselves, it extends to how they see people and the world. They are rarely fooled by sweet words or shallow promises because they've learned to read patterns and intentions. They understand human nature on a level that makes manipulation almost impossible. This is why some mistake them for cynical or cold. The truth is, they're not cold, they're awake. They no longer live in denial, and that truthfulness makes them uncomfortable to be around. In a world built on pretending, someone who refuses to play along feels dangerous. But brutal clarity is not easy to carry. It comes with pain because seeing the truth means losing illusions that once brought comfort. They've had to grieve not just people, but the versions of life they once believed in. And yet, this is where their strength lies. They no longer fear reality. They embrace it. Solitude has stripped away every mask they could hide behind, and now they face the world with a kind of fearless honesty that cannot be shaken. This intelligence makes them powerful in ways that are difficult to measure. People who possess brutal clarity often lead quietly, influence deeply, and disrupt systems without effort, simply because they see what others refuse to see. And that's why those who choose solitude are often misunderstood. Their wisdom feels heavy, their presence feels sharp, and their words cut through pretense like a blade. They carry the weight of truth, and in a world built on comfortable lies, truth itself is terrifying. Discipline is powerful when others are watching. But when no one is watching, and you still push yourself, that's when it becomes dangerous. People who choose solitude often develop this kind of discipline, a relentless drive forged in silence. When the world is quiet, there are no distractions, no applause, and no instant rewards. In that silence, they build habits that feel almost unnatural to the average person. They train their minds, bodies, and spirits without needing external validation, because solitude has taught them that true mastery is done in secret. This is the kind of discipline that terrifies others because it cannot be broken easily. These individuals don't rely on motivation. They rely on consistency. They wake up early when no one is there to hold them accountable. They practice their craft when nobody is watching. They study in silence while others are celebrating. They are not driven by fame or recognition. They are driven by purpose. And when that kind of purpose is sharpened over years of solitude, it becomes a weapon. History is filled with people who disappeared from the world for years, only to return transformed. Warriors, inventors, leaders, and visionaries. Many of them spent seasons of isolation that looked like failure, but were actually preparation. Solitude gives them the space to focus on things that matter, to master themselves first before mastering the world. They emerge from that silence not just stronger, but almost unrecognizable. And that transformation is terrifying, because it is proof of what humans can become when they no longer seek permission to grow. This dangerous discipline is the final layer of strength for those who choose solitude. It makes them unstoppable because their growth is independent of circumstances or opinions. They do not wait for the right time, they create it. They do not fear setbacks because solitude has already taught them endurance. This is why they are so misunderstood. The world sees only the results: confidence, wisdom, skill, and calm power, without realizing it was forged in endless hours of unseen effort. Solitude is not a prison for these people, it is a training ground. And those who walk out of that training ground become legends. Solitude is often seen as a punishment, a sign of loneliness or rejection. But for those who choose it, solitude becomes something entirely different. It becomes a crucible. It is the silent classroom where strength is born, where pain is transformed into wisdom, and where self-discovery turns into self-mastery. These individuals do not fear being alone. They fear living a life dictated by noise, distractions, and illusions. They are not empty. They are full of observation, clarity, and discipline. They have traded the comfort of crowds for the power of knowing themselves. And that power is terrifying. Not because they seek to harm, but because they cannot be easily controlled, swayed, or broken. In a world desperate for approval, their independence feels like rebellion. In a world addicted to attention, their silence feels like a weapon. So the next time you meet someone who prefers solitude, don't pity them. Watch them closely. Because in that quiet, they are becoming something most people will never dare to be. Whole, fearless, and free. Solitude doesn't create weakness, it reveals power. And the ones who walk alone often walk paths that no one else is brave enough to take. If this episode spoke to you, if you saw a piece of yourself reflected in these words, don't let it end here. Hit the like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to be reminded of their own strength. Because somewhere out there is a person sitting alone, questioning their worth, not realizing that their solitude is shaping them into something extraordinary. Here at the Forgotten Chapters, we tell the stories others are afraid to tell. We explore the wisdom forged in suffering, the quiet power born in stillness, and the kind of truths that change how you see yourself and the world around you. Every video is more than just content. It's a mirror for those who feel different, misunderstood, or out of place. So join us. Walk with us through these hidden stories, these forgotten truths, because the world needs more people who are awake, more people who carry their scars with dignity, and more people unafraid to stand alone. Your solitude is not weakness. It is your awakening. And if this resonates with you, let this channel be your reminder. Silence can be your greatest teacher and your greatest weapon.